We continue now at the top of Daf Yadalet Amud Aleph and Meseches Avodah Zara. This is Avodah Zarah Daf 14a. On the previous Amud, the Mishnah listed a bunch of items which you're never supposed to sell to an idol worshiper because they use those items for idol worship. And one of those items was the Itzderoblin. And the Gemara says, "My Itzderoblin, what is Itzderoblin?" And the Gemara answers, Tornisa. And Rashi explains what's Tornisa min erez. It's a kind of cedar tree. V'hi shita. It's the shita which we generally translate as an acacia tree. Kedamar b'Rosh Hashanah, as we say in Mesechet. Rosh Hashanah. The Gemara continues and asks on this, Uraminu, we have the following contradiction. You're saying it's the Roblin is the Tornisa. We have a contradiction from the following Brisa. The Brisa says, Hosifo aleyan alachsin v'itz the Roblin muchsasin uvenos shuach. These are various kinds of plants that are going to be usher. They grow by themselves, and then they're usher in the Shemitah year with various restrictions of Shemitah. And one of the things in the list in this Brisa is it's the Roblin. And so the Gemara says, V'salka daitoch it's the Roblin Tornisa. Now, if you think that it's the Roblin is Tornisa mi isa b'shvius. Does that really count among the different kinds of plants that are going to be usher in terms of shvius? V'hatanya, but we learned in a brisa, zeh haklal, the rule is as follows: kol sheyesh lo ikar, if something has roots, what that means is that the roots stay over in the winter, it doesn't have to be replanted. So yesh lo shvius. So then shvius applies to such a tree, to such a plant. V'chol she'ein lo ikar, but if it doesn't have those roots that are able to stay through the winter, so ein lo shvius. So then the laws of shvius do not apply, and so therefore the assumption over here is that the Tornisa is something that is ein lo ikar, and therefore shvius should not apply, and so therefore it cannot be that it's the Roblin is Tornisa, and so the Gemara instead says Elo Amar of Safra, rather if Safra says Piri de Arza, it is the fruit of the Arza of the cedar tree, and that generally is understood to refer either we're talking here about acorns, might be an oak tree, or we might be talking about pine cones. In any case, that's what we're referring to over here. V'chein ki yasa Ravin Amar Rebbe Elazar, and likewise when Ravin came, he said that Rebbe Elazar said, Piri da'arza, we're talking about the fruits of the cedar tree. And the Gemara continues at the two dots, another item that was listed in the Mishnah is benos shuach. What is that? Amar Rabba bar bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabba bar bar Chana says that Rabbi Yochanan says, Te'enei chivrasa, that refers to the white figs. And the Gemara continues at the two dots, the Mishnah said another item that's going to be prohibited is the item upetotros. Now literally, petotros means stems, and so the Gemara says, Amar Rabba bar bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabba bar bar Chana says that Rabbi Yochanan says that petotros is not an additional item. It actually just means bipitrotosehen shanu, means to say the items that we just listed, like it's the Roblin, those are going to be usher with their stems as well. The stems are going to be included in the prohibition. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah also listed levona, which is frankincense. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. Rabbi Yitzchak says that Reish Lakish says levona zaka. When we say frankincense in the Mishnah, we're talking about pure frankincense. And the Gemara continues, Tana, it was taught, umikulan mochrin lohen chavila. It says from all of these items, if you sell them to the idol worshiper as a bundle, then that is okay. The kama chavila, and how much is a bundle? Perish Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira explains, ein chavela pchusa mishlosha manin. The way Rashi understands is manin, we're talking about a weight of maneh. A bundle is not going to be less than 3 maneh. Some understand that it's shlosha minim, like 3 species. In any case, the Gemara then says, 1 second, why are you allowed to sell it in a bundle? Again, let's say shlosha manin, that weighs 3 maneh. Maybe we should be concerned that the idol worshiper, he himself is not going to buy so many for idol worship. He's buying it to sell to others, and they're going to use it for idol worship. So therefore, that should be problematic. The Gemara says, Amar Abaya says, Alifnei mifakdin, and we're commanded in terms of lifnei iver. This entire idea over here is really lifnei iver. You don't want to sell something to the idol worshiper is going to use for idol worship. It's in front of the blind, you shouldn't put a stumbling block. That's lifnei iver. That we're concerned about. Alifnei de lifnei lo mifakdin, but we're not commanded regarding before, meaning to sell it to someone who's going to sell it to someone. That's not going to be included in lifnei iver. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said also, Vitarnago Lavan, the white rooster also should not be sold to the idol worshippers. And the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Yonah, Amar Rabbi Zera, Amar Rabbi Zavid. Rabbi Yonah says that Rabbi Zera says that Rabbi Zavid says, V'ika Damasti, there are those that teach it as follows, Amar Rabbi Yonah, Amar Rabbi Zera. The Rabbi Yonah says that Rabbi Zera says, Tarnagol Lemi. Let's say the idol worshipper says, does anyone have a Tarnagol? He doesn't specify a white Tarnagol. He just says he wants to buy a Tarnagol. So then actually, Mutter Limchor Lo Tarnagol Lavan. It's permitted to sell to him a white Tarnagol because he's clearly not not using it for Avodah Zara. Tarnagol lavan lami. Now, if he says, does anyone have a white tarnagol? So asr limchor lo tarnagol lavan, then it would be asr to sell him the white rooster, because then he may be using it for Avodah Zara. The Gemara continues, Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda says, mocher hu lo tarnagol lavan bein ha-tarnagol. And Rabbi Yehuda says, you could sell him a white rooster if it's among a bunch of roosters that you're selling to him. And the Gemara wants to clarify what was the situation Rabbi Yehuda was talking about. Hey Chidami, what exactly is the case? Ilema to come tarnagol lavan lami, tarnagol lavan lami. Let's say that if you're going to say that the person was saying, does anyone have a white rooster? Does anyone have a white rooster? So then afilu bein tarnagol and namilo. Then you shouldn't be able to sell him a white rooster even among other roosters. So that cannot be the case Rabbi Yehuda is talking about. So elalav, rather than not, to come tarnagol lami, he's just saying, does anyone have a tarnagol? Does anyone have a rooster? And nevertheless, Rabbi Yehuda bein tarnagol in bifnei atzmo lo. Rabbi Yehuda is only permitting it if you sell other roosters. You cannot sell it by itself. That would show that if he's just asking for a plain rooster, you cannot sell him a tarnagol lavan alone. That's even according to Rabbi Yehuda. Ula Tanakama, and apparently according to the Tanakama, afilu bein tarnagol and namilo. In this situation, when he's asking for a tarnagol, you can't even sell him a white rooster among other roosters, and so therefore that would seem to refute what we just said above. And the Gemara says, no, that's actually not the case that Rabbi Yehuda is talking about. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says, Hacha b'mayaskin, and here what are we talking about? Kegon do Amar zev vazeh. What actually happened was he said this and this, meaning to say the person was actually asking for a white tarnagol and other kinds of tarnagolin, and so therefore in such a situation, Rabbi Yehuda says you can sell him the white tarnagol among the other kinds, and the Tanakhama say that that is prohibited. Rashi explains, Hacha b'mayaskin and damar zev vazeh, masnisin del Rabbi Yehuda b'fnei atzmo lo. Our Mishnah, where according to Rabbi Yehuda you wouldn't be able to sell the white tarnagol alone, ula Tanakama lagamri aser, and according to the Tanakama, to sell even among other roosters would be problematic to sell the white one. Kagon to meikara adkar lavan v'shachar v'yadam. The v'yadam. The case is he originally mentioned he wanted white, he wanted black, he wanted red. Hilkach lavan the Rabbi Yehuda b'fnei atzmo aser. Therefore, according to Rabbi Yehuda, if it's just a white one on its own, it's forbidden. Kaven to meikara idkar, because that was mentioned. V'hashta shakel lavan. Now he's going to be taking this white one v'yazale meikara nami echavin lalavan. He was thinking that all along that he wanted a white one. V'hayde idkar shachar yarume yarim. The reason why he mentioned other colors like black, he was just being deceitful. The yadahu di shai lavan lechude lo zavin leIsrael. He knew that if he would ask just for a white one, the Jew's not going to sell it to him. Uveina tarnagol mutter, but to sell it to him among the other roosters, it's okay. Demigo de shachar lav lavodas kochavim lavanami lav lavodas kochavim. Since the black one's not for Avodah Zara, the white one also we assume is not for Avodah Zara. And Rashi continues, V'Rabbanan, now the Rabbanan, they say, afilu bein hatarnagol and nami, also even to sell it to him among other roosters is forbidden. However, the katav alavin, since he was asking for a white one. Umiu tarnagol stomach. Now, nevertheless, let's say it's just tarnagol. Bein l'Rabbi Yehuda, bein l'Rabbanan. It doesn't matter if you're following Rabbi Yehuda or the Rabbanan. If he just asks for a plain tarnagol, mutter limchor lo tarnagol lavin krebi zer, then it would be permitted to sell him a white tarnagol according to Rabbi Zer. That's how we can answer the question from our Mishnah. And the Gemara continues, Tanya Nami Hachi, we have a brisa like this as well. Amar Rabbi Yehuda says, Amosai, when is this the case? Bisman Shamar Tarnago Lovin, when he says, I want this white rooster, then it becomes problematic. Avalim Amar Zev Vozeb, but if he says, I want this one and this one, I want the white one and the black one, mutter, it's going to be permitted. Vafilu Amar Tarnago Zev, even if he says, I want this particular rooster, this white rooster, but since he added other roosters, again, you could sell him those bunch of roosters. And the brisa continues, Ovid Kochavim Sha'asa Mishta Livno. Let's say you have a idol worshiper and he's making a banquet for his son. Right now we think it means he's making like a wedding feast. Or let's say he has somebody that's ill in his house. So then we assume that he's buying it for the person that's ill. He's not buying it for Avodah Zara. So then mutter, so then it actually is going to be mutter. It's going to be permitted to sell him the white tarnagol. And the Gemara continues and asks on this, but didn't we learn in the Mishnah earlier, Ovid Kochavim Sha'asa Mishta Livno, it said that if an idol worshiper is making a banquet for his son, like a wedding feast, Eino Asar Ela Oso Hayom V'Oso Ish Belvad, then to do business with that idol worshiper, it's only going to be forbidden on that day that he's making the feast, and with that particular individual. But still, apparently, Oso Hayom V'Oso Ish Mi'asar, but on that day with that person, it's forbidden to do any kind of business with this individual. So yet we're saying over here in this brisa, we're saying if he's making a feast, so then you're allowed to sell him this tarnagol lavan, but apparently you're not allowed to do any business with him. So how do we understand this? And the Gemara continues and answers, Amar Rav Yitzchak bar Rav Mesharshi, Rav Yitzchak bar Rav Mesharshi says, Betavzig, when we're talking talking over here in the Brisa, we're saying you can sell a white rooster when he's making a banquet. We're not talking about a wedding feast. We're talking just about a social banquet. That would be okay. Rashi explains, when we say that for a banquet, a feast, you could sell him a white tarnagol, that's not talking where a son's getting married. There he certainly wants to use it. He wants to give an offering to the Avoda Zara. This is just a social party that the young men make for one another. That's not so important that they would bring. It's just a social gathering. They're not going to be offering to Avodah Zara in that case. That's why it's mutter in that situation. And the Gemara continues, Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, Ushar kol hadvarim. It said by other items, meaning not the items listed in the Mishnah, but just other items. So stam on mutter. So if the person just wants to buy it, the idol worshiper wants to buy it, stam. So then mutter, it's permitted. Upeirushan, but if he's explicit, which we're going to explain in a minute what that means, so then asr, then it's forbidden to sell these other items to the non-Jew. The Gemara says, my stam and my peirushan. What does it mean that he just wants to buy it stam? He doesn't make any specifications. And what does it mean that he makes specifications? So Elaim, if you're going to say stama, what does it mean that he does it stam? That he says, I want to buy white wheat. So he's just specifying very particularly what the item is, so that you're allowed to sell him the white wheat. And peirushan, and when he explains, when he's explicit, that's if he says, I want white wheat for Avodah Zara, then it would be forbidden. If you're going to say that's the meaning of the Mishnah, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Yodalid Amid Beis.